Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, November 26th. And I understand we have some friends with us to lead us in the pledge tonight. From Paige Jackson.
This is perfect. So I brought three of my friends with me. I have Elise Maher. She is in kindergarten at Paige Jackson. I have Jonathan Goodsman. He is in first grade at Paige Jackson. And Markella Bowman, and she is in second grade at Paige. So Markella, would you ask everyone to stand, please?
Can you guys please stand up for the pledge?
And ask them to please turn around and face the flag.
Please turn around and face the flag.
Okay, you ready? Turn around and face the flag. All right, right hands on our hearts. You ready? 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for having us.
All right. November recognitions.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. We're doing it old school a little bit. We've got a big stack of people, but that's because I think we've had a lot of achievements lately in Jefferson County schools, and I'm excited to tell you about all of those. We're going to start perfectly, just in time. I'm going to ask Kelly Osborne from Driswood Elementary School.
You can go first.
To come up and talk about one of our students who garnered statewide recognition through a recent contest. Kelly?
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Leiliani Gonzalez. She is our second Driftwood winner of the State Fire Marshal contest. The State Fire Marshal came to visit her and her classroom. Her teacher, Mrs. Stevenson, is here. She will be in the March calendar, so Dr. Gibson will get her second State Fire Marshal calendar this year.
Thank you for the free calendar.
But she got a beautiful plaque, and I asked Ms. Marinskin to be here because she sponsors it as part of our library program.
Yeah, so this is our third year doing the fire safety contest. We start out the school year teaching fire safety and utilizing the resources in the library. And with the older kids, I've given them the opportunity to choose whether they want to finish the project and submit it for the contest, or if they decide to not finish, they don't have to. So Leiliani took it upon herself on her own free time to finish the project and obviously do very well. So she won for the state, which we're very proud of.
Anything you'd like to say, Liliana?
I would like to thank my family and my friends for everything that they've done for me.
Stop, drop, and roll on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, well done. Congratulations. Speaking of fire safety, this brings it to the next group we are going to be recognizing, and that is the students at our Opportunity Learning Center. As you know, back on October the 24th, there was a fire there. And the students reacted in the actual events appropriately, being safety conscious, and then afterwards showed themselves to be exemplary community members and citizens. So Thomas Vandell is going to talk a little bit about that and name the students.
Yeah, come on up. I have Miss Katarina with me, representing the OLC.
We had smoke in that building, and I had to evacuate, and the students just did an excellent job. And then after that, they were resilient, they were compliant. We basically were in a one-room school building at Fisherman's Hall, which we appreciate them taking care of us. And I just couldn't be more pleased. It was like we were shooting a video on how to act when you have a fire in your building. So I thank them so much for that, and the staff, and everybody was wonderful. Yes. Yes, we did. We made them cookies and cupcakes and brownies, and then we went to the 4 different fire companies and we delivered them to them. So the kids did a nice job with everything.
Awesome. Yes. Over and get a picture.
Okay, where are we going?
Right over here in front. That seems to save time.
In front of them?
There's a spot in between. All right, maybe around. We'll go around. Between Ms. Roper and Ms. Skinner.
Go back over
Yeah,
there.
I'm sorry. It's a work in progress, folks. Thanks for bearing with me. Always looking for the best angle. All right.
Yes.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. On camera on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. One more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You and your classmates, thank you very much. Oh, yeah. Was that? Well, one's for you and one's for your classmates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next group is from Washington High School. We'll have Principal Judy Marcus come up to introduce Mr. Bell and the Washington High School Honors Chamber Choir.
We are very pleased. Mr. Cooper does a fabulous job for us, and we're going to get him out here, and he'll tell you just a little bit about it. It's, of course, an audition group. Kids from all over the state go. He does work with them diligently to prepare them. He tutors them after school, which we really appreciate. He even does a sign-in so we know he's doing the work. Mr. Cooper, here he is. Mr. Cooper. They should probably go behind the board, would be great.
Okay, why don't you go up and just form a circle behind this. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the singers from Washington High School who have successfully prepared, auditioned, and been selected, and that's not all of them. There's more to come in over there. These students have been selected to participate in the American Choral Directors Association All-State Choir this year. And this year marks our biggest number of students. We have 17 students that got selected this year. So, but 4 of them are not here tonight. So, but it's 17 in total. And these students represent the highest achievement a choir student in West Virginia can attain. The level of commitment from these students is admirable because all the preparation for these choirs is done outside of class time. So typically the students rehearse 30 to 40 hours with me after school. They've been chosen from hundreds of students from around the state, and tonight we honor their dedication and congratulate them on receiving this high honor. So I'll introduce all of them. We have 7 ninth grade students who made it into the junior high middle school honors choir. And they are, just step forward when I say your name, okay? Gabe Baker, Bryn Bartlett, Avern McGinnis, Daniel Velez, and Sarah Ward. These are going to be in the 9th grade choir.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And we also have 10 more students that made it into the 10, 11, and 12 choir, the All-State Chamber Choir. And they are Zach Cabanis, Michael DeServio, Cooper Gagney, Reagan Hillman, Jamie Ingersoll, oh, Jamie's not here, sorry, Kyle Guyan, Zinn Rogers, Megan Shepard, and Noel Ward. Now, an extra special thing that happened this year is from this group of those, the 10 for the chambers, the high school chamber choir, we had 5 of them that were outstanding and received special recognition, and they'll be part of a smaller elite choir this year of only 32. And that will be Kyle. He was the 4th highest tenor 2 in the state. They each get a ranking. So he was the 4th highest. Zach was the 3rd highest tenor 2. Michael was the 2nd highest tenor 1.
Wow.
And the highest bass 2 in the state is this tall guy over here, Cooper Gagnon. Just to change things up for you tonight, I thought it'd be nice for us to sing a little bit of one of the songs. This is one of the, they don't know what they have to sing until they get there. They have to learn all this music, and then you get there and they say, sing measures 1 to 32. So they put it on the spot once they're there. But we learn it all, so we're prepared. So this is one of the pieces, just a little bit of it, that they had to learn. This one of the challenges, it's not always in English. We had a German song, and this one is in Creole. So you might not understand it, but hopefully you'll appreciate it and enjoy it.
Tambo, kata katabula, po po po, café en discussion, 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 yongo dimanche matin. Leo san nanjimen, woi 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 woi, tum tum yon tikata, tum tum yon tambourin, po 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 po, tum tum yon bambula, bula men bula, toi tambo, kata kata bula tambourin, tui lipi bon, tui lipi bon, tui woi lipi bon, woi lipi bon bon bon. Tui lipi bon, tui lipi bon, tui woi lipi bon, c'est vrai. Tudum pa, men bula.
That was awesome. We just need a schedule. Like, when can we see them perform again?
You can see them Thursday, December the 13th is our winter concert. But you can come to about 5 other events that we're doing throughout December in the community. We're at the Old Time Christmas Celebration in Harpers Ferry. We're at the Dolly Madison Christmas Bazaar. We're at the Senior Center. We're at the Christmas Parade. We are at, what else? Lots of stuff.
Yes.
We're very busy.
It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes. Okay. If you'll get over.
You've done the picture?
I did some, like action shots.
Everybody jump.
So far it's been all candid, so we'll let everyone smile and let their best. I'm glad you clarified what you're saying, the highest tenor. I was thinking octave. All right, do re mi on 3. 1, 2, 3. There it is. One more. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Here's what it is. All right. So those are our students for this evening. The other folks that we always like to take an opportunity to recognize each month are our Spirit of Jefferson winners. We do a professional as well as a service person every single time around. And this evening we will be recognizing first a professional staff member at Ranston Elementary School. So if Principal Deborah Corbett is in the audience. I'll let her speak from experience.
All right. So, good evening, everyone. It's delighted to be here. I'm gonna say, "Come on up, Miss Sims." All right. Get that? I wasn't in that choir, but I'm feeling the spirit. We would like to formally recognize Miss Bette Sims as our school spirit leader. Ms. Sims has been at our school for just a few years, 36. 37 this year, sorry. And after all of those few years, she still arrives at school singing, humming, and greeting everyone. Her positive attitude is contagious for both students and staff. Ms. Sims is the face and voice of Ranson. She is the first person our students see in the morning and the first voice they hear. The students enter to a high energy. Good morning. You can say it.
Good morning, Ranson Elementary students.
Ms. Sims is our official student greeter, like Walmart, leads them to the school with excitement and eagerness. She sings to the classes as they enter the building by the grade levels. She's a personal escort for some students who love hearing Ms. Sims track her steps. She likes walking and talking. She's like a walking and talking morning information center for parents when they feel they can ask questions and get a quick response from her while feeling good about dropping their children off. Daily, Ms. Sims announces the attendance award winners and birthdays while handling out birthday pencils and certificates, singing a medley of her personalized birthday tunes. If you are lucky enough to be a teacher at Ranson, she will belt out, "Today it's your birthday," at the top of her lungs to celebrate you. You want to see that?
Not.
Okay, just checking. She cheers for everyone. She attends every event. She always has a smile on her face and a song on her lips. She jumps in to assist or take the lead where needed. She is a team player. She goes the extra mile. She is all about the Ranson Elementary students. Ms. Sims embodies the spirit of Ranson. She leads our school family as a role model, and we are thankful she is a member of our school. It is a treat to attend one of our retirement functions where we can't wait to hear one of her Bet's originals honoring that person. In fact, she's working on one of mine right now.
Parodies, and I've been working on hers for years. She keeps threatening, but it hasn't happened.
So it's in the works. So if you would like to have your spirit and soul uplifted every day, come join our Ranson family and allow Miss Sims to greet you at the door each morning to a song that will make your heart soar. Miss Sims.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for letting me be myself again.
Thank you.
Can I get a picture with the board?
Oh, okay.
All right, everyone, hum a little ditty on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been told not to expect singing every time. It seems to be a theme this evening. I'd like to, for our service spirit winner this month, I'd like to invite Nikki Johnson, principal at North Jefferson.
Didn't realize this was my inauguration. I'm loving it. So we are pleased tonight to give our award to Miss Mary Mullins, and she's going to be singing for you tonight as well. Actually, she left Ranson, so apparently we do singing there. So now that we know, I'm going to hand this to you now. Thank you. You want to sing?
No.
Miss Mullins, actually, she really did. She came from Ranson when we stole their pre-K program last year. And Miss Mullins was an amazing addition last year. But when I tell you how much she has grown this year, it's incredible. Our pre-K program went from being a program last year to a collaboration and a family this year. We have heard over and over and over this year year that pre-K is a dream, that they are excited to see our pre-K babies grow for the next 5 to 6 years. It's amazing this year. We interviewed Mrs. Allen over the phone, and everybody was excited to have her come. But the exciting thing was to see, we called Miss Mullins and told her who we hired, and the first thing she did was ask for her phone number, and they came in and worked together all summer to set up their classroom and to build their program. Our teachers and our service personnel in pre-K worked all summer to build a collaborative program, and our pre-K program this year has been amazing. But more than I could say for anyone, we'd have to thank Miss Mullins for that. She really took the initiative to reach out and to build pre-K as a family this year, and just the love and the warmth that our pre-K program had is amazing. She started our Good News Club this year. And it's growing. It's become a family even amongst our staff. So instead of one staff member leading that program, it's 3. They all pitch in, they get together in the mornings, and just make our staff feel loved. So our children, our staff, everyone has just really become a different group of people this year. And I think she's definitely one of the people that we have to attribute that to. So it's not a surprise that it was her colleagues that nominated her for this award. And so we just have to thank her. So she is definitely one of the people that have changed our climate immensely in the building this year, and has definitely made me feel very loved this year. So thank you very much, and we are very happy to have you stay with us this year. So thank you.
My pleasure. Really. Thank you.
All right, pre-K on 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. Great. Thank you. And of course, there are several groups that make the school system work. We've got our employees, we've got our parents and students, and we've got our community partners, our volunteers. Every month we like to recognize a volunteer for the outstanding work they do to better our school. And I will ask Jackie Gore and Judy Marcus to come up and talk about a volunteer at Washington High School who's made a difference for them.
Good evening. This year, my students in desktop publishing class, they're like my second year students, I call them, because they're prerequisites they have to have in order to be in the class. They had the opportunity to create some design work for the Rotary Club of Charlestown. And through that endeavor, Miss Amy Panzarella, and she is the president, come up. She is our president of the Rotary Club of Charlestown. She and one of her teammates in the Rotary Club came into my classroom several times and also communicated with the students through email and allowed the students to be leaders, but also worked one-on-one with many of the groups in the classroom. And last year we started this. Last year was the first year, right? And my students were able to, last year, create an ad for the Spirit of Jefferson for their Christmas for Charities event. And through that, the Rotary Club raised how much money?
This year?
How much did they raise last year?
Last year was $52,000.
Do you know the total for this year yet?
Yes. $61,000.
And this year they raised $61,000 for the charities of Charlestown. But what I like is I was a little nervous, I have to tell you, this year because I have a much bigger group. Which is good. You know, I have a lot of students in the class. So last year I only had 6 young men. They were all boys. I'm like, how am I going to convince these boys to work with the Rotary Club of Charlestown on this Christmas event? And boys could care less sometimes about, you know, organizing something that's going to be held in a ballroom. But this year I said, are you sure you want to work with these kids this year? Because I have 20. And I said, I just need to get a handle on how we're going to organize it. And it all didn't work perfectly. It just worked perfectly. When you tell the kids what to expect, they live up to it. So I don't know if you want to say a few words.
It's a joy, really, to work with the students. And, one of my missions is to compel adults to appreciate that if you talk to them and collaborate with them instead of talking at them and lecturing them, they're much more responsive and much more excited about the task at hand. Never any issues. They were always so polite, so professional, very responsive. I cannot tell you how many emails we exchanged over the course of about a month and a half to 2 months. Miss Gore is an absolute gem to work with as well. Very patient, too, I'm sure. The deadlines were challenging. I am very picky, so the edits that I was sending back were probably a little bit more meticulous than they were used to, but the product turned out beautiful. Hans saw it. They did a really fantastic job, and I'm super proud of the kids that worked on it, and I'm really pleased to have worked with Ms. Gore again on the project. So,
thank you so
much. And I credit the significant funds that we raised really to a lot of the work that they did. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is so unexpected.
It was supposed to be a surprise. She also serves on our advisory council.
Yes.
I don't think she's ever missed a meeting. She also worked hard to get our Interact Club up and moving along.
Yes.
So it goes beyond just one department, and she's not even one of our parents. But we love her. We love having her. And as I said, it goes beyond just working with our kids in class, coming to the advisory council to work with our professionals. So we have an ear in the community, and she's listening, and she's talking back to us. And also, like I said, the Interact Club, which really has come a long, long way. And we sent them to the business symposium over there, and like I said, her work.
She helped with the business symposium too.
So it's been good. Thank you.
She speaks to my students in the spring about how to get a job, so she does a wonderful job at that too.
How to keep it more
the list just keeps going on and on. Congratulations,
Thank
Amy.
you so much.
You're very welcome.
Yours if you would go.
Oh, there you go.
Gosh, this is really official.
Picture with the board. It's going to be sent an email.
Thanks for remembering the other thing. I was so focused on that student project.
All right, everybody ready? Job interview on 4. 4? All right, one more. All right, here we go.
Thanks. Was this a wow?
And she's dressed like that also. I had no idea she was going to get a picture taken.
Just like all of us, we just sort of walk out and go, oh, this? Yeah. That's everybody that we're recognizing this month. Stay tuned for December. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Cougar Hour. Is Miss Fitzgerald here?
Video, you can just double click.
Double click and it'll be right there.
Just play whenever you're ready.
Hello.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Sherry Fitzgerald, principal at Jefferson High School, and I have a smattering of students and faculty and parents with me this evening, as well as our resource officer. And we're here to share with you information about Cougar Hour. I'd like to take indulgence for about 1 minute and 40 seconds to share with you some footage that Hans helped to put together for us to show you for Cougar Hour.
Thanks for the late introduction.
Okay, all right, hold on a minute. I can see it perfectly right here.
Theater of the mind, folks. Listen to the school song. This worked before, of course. Now we're having some technical difficulty.
It is not mission critical, so we can share it with you later.
Minimize that. Right click. Screen, graphics options. Go to screen resolution. And then go to here and duplicate. Okay. All right, that should do it. Keep change. Yep. All right. And play it.
Voila.
All right.
Thank you. And that is all footage shot at Jefferson High School during Cougar Hour. I assure you, none of those children were singing that song. So those were sights from the Cougar Hour, but not necessarily sounds from Cougar Hour. But thank you again to Hans for helping to put that together so you can see some of what is happening at Cougar Hour. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you this evening and share with you some information about Cougar Hour. I'm going to open with just kind of an overview how we came to land with Cougar Hour at Jefferson High School, and then I'll be turning it over to students and faculty, parents, and our resource officer to share their perspectives and what their experiences of Cougar Hour have been. So you have a packet there. I will reference some of the pages during my conversation. However, it's there for you certainly to reference and peruse in its entirety at your leisure. And the names of those who will be sharing their perspectives are on the little blue card that's right on the very front when you open your folder there, so that when we move to that part, we can just move seamlessly from one to the next. So as many of you know, I arrived at Jefferson High School in October of 2015. I was the 5th principal in 4 years. So aside from the angst of the changing leadership at Jefferson, the staff and students there were certainly feeling the pressure of an increased student population. At that time, lunch was held in 3 shifts through an expanded 5th period. Administrators were your lunch duty persons, and so 25% of your administrator's time was spent in the cafeteria. The teachers who had planning during 5th period rotated through in 15-minute rotations. The expectations for students at that time were that they remain seated, that they did not use their telephone, that they kept noise to a very low volume. The only movement was to the trash or to the food line and to the bathroom with permission. If they were going to go to the library or go to a teacher, if their teacher happened to have 5th period planning to do makeup work, they had to have a pass to do so. So since most teachers were in class during 5th period, students had to rely on after school for most of their makeup work. At that time, we were looking at a projected enrollment for the 2016-17 school year of 1,600 students. And so after spending lots of time standing in the cafeteria, I was really wondering what were we going to do about lunch. Because quite honestly, I couldn't bear the thought of standing at lunch for 4 periods a day. So the expanded 5th period already resulted in a disparity of instructional and planning time, and again it consumed 2 hours of administrators' day, which is 25% of their time.
Not that we get paid a boatload of money, but we are your most expensive lunch duty people in town. So the cafeteria has a capacity of 420 students. So even on the calculations of the student population at that time, at 2015-16, we would have had to have 3.6 lunch periods in order to accommodate all of the students. We only had 3 lunch periods. So fortunately, not everybody's at school every day, and some students have OSE. So they're not necessarily there for lunchtime, and we also have students who go to Rumsey. So we had to count on those extractions from our population in order to accommodate lunch. So if we were looking at close to 1,600 students, we would certainly need 4 lunch periods. And even now, if we were looking at our population, which is a nice elbow room, comfortable 1440, we would still take 3.4 lunch periods based on our capacity in the cafeteria to accommodate our students. It happened that in January of 2016, I participated in an OEPA audit team visit to Kanawha County. Riverside High School was one of the high schools that I visited, and it happened that they had a thing called Warrior Time. And so in the middle of the day, they had an hour for lunch, and every student went to lunch. Their cafeteria was not much big. It was much more modern setup, but it was not much bigger in terms of capacity. It happened that another principal, who was also on the audit team at Ripley High School, he had also a power hour at his school. So immediately I started picking their brains and thinking and tumbling that around in terms of maybe this could be a thing that we could do at Jefferson High School to accommodate our lunchtime. What I also learned in the conversations with them is that it not only might solve our lunch woes, but it also might help to respond to some of the other needs that I had already begun to hear very loudly from our staff at school, which is, oh, we don't have time for meetings. Our students can't get here after school for makeup work. We don't have time to collaborate, and you want us to have professional learning communities. You want us to learn how to do new things, and we simply don't have time in our contract day to be able to do that. So these were some of the same concerns that were faced by a principal in Westport High School in Florida a number of years ago, who wrote an article that was featured in Principal Leadership, which is the journal of the National Association of Secondary School Principals. There is a copy of that article in your folder, and this article essentially launched a movement. Not that it was rocket science, not that it was the greatest and latest and newest invention. There have been open lunches in high schools across history, but this particular mindset in terms of opening school in the middle of the day for students to have lunch and to do other things was essentially kind of launched through this article. There were other schools across the country that jumped on and adopted the idea and reinvented it to fit their specific needs. And so if you look through your folder, pages 5 and 6 have some of the schools from across the country and in West Virginia that use a power hour model. What do all of those power hour models have in common? Those all provide opportunities for student engagement and enrichment, time for clubs and activities, makeup within the context of the school day. It allows students to take ownership of their educational experience and practice those pro-social and self-regulation skills that are so necessary for life outside of school and beyond high school. So, with that in mind, my wheels were turning, and I started talking with the leadership team. I talked with our LSIC. I talked with Pat Blanc. However, this was Mrs. Fitzgerald, Ms. Ross at the time, who was principal number 5 in 4 years, and it was like womp, 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 womp. So I'm not really sure who all heard what about the Cougar Hour conversation, but I talked about it a lot with a lot of different people for a really long time, essentially from January until the end of the school year. So the admin team was very gracious, and they worked with, together over the summer, and we put together a schedule that allowed us to launch Cougar Hour for the 2016-17 school year. That particular year, teachers then would have 2 days of duty, a day where they would have department meeting or collaborative planning, a day where they would host intervention, which was a mandatory intervention for students who were at risk of failing, and a day of study hall, and if they hosted a club, that would be a day where they could host their club during their study hall. Students were able to eat, imagine that. They could have extra practice for the performing arts, participate in clubs, visit the library, enjoy social time, go outside and get fresh air and see the sky, participate in makeup work, and of course participate in intervention. On the first day of school, guess what happened when the bell rang for lunch? Every single student went to the cafeteria. what happened? Well, there were really long lines, and they were like, we're not really sure what to do, and we weren't really paying attention during an opening meeting earlier this morning that told me all the different places I could go and all the different things I could do instead of stand in line in the cafeteria. So guess what happened on day 2? They didn't all go to the cafeteria. They spread themselves out. And by day 3, they were figuring out, the students certainly, were figuring out where they could go, what they could do, and where they could be. So over the course of that year, we made some tweaks along the way and then solicited feedback from both our faculty and our students in May of 2017. Pages 7-8 of your packet provide you information on that feedback, and as a result of that feedback, we made a number of changes in implementation. We created a Cougar Hour Duty Committee, the spearheader of which is here this evening, who will be talking to you about the wiles and ways of preparing a duty schedule for 137 faculty members, where to go and what to do and where to be. We analyzed the duties and the supervision needs. We utilized additional faculty, including assigning administrators to high visibility areas. We added floaters to increase supervision and provide flexibility for club sponsors. We consolidated intervention and study hall so we could increase the pool of faculty available for duty. We limited areas for food and drink, closed down parts of the building, secured restrooms in unsupervised areas, initiated a pass system for intervention, established weather criteria for going outside, fostered a culture of mutual accountability, which looks like when you don't show up as a teacher to your duty station, somebody calls you on the PA to come to your duty station. That's what mutual accountability looks like. We established Cougar expectations for students and posted them throughout the building. We clarified expectations for our parents for bringing food or signing their students out for lunch. We added seating throughout the building. We moved our indoor play to the large gym instead of the auxiliary gym, and we closed the gym early to allow time for cleanup and changing clothes. And we also enhanced charts and documents for the schedules and duties, and we shared those via the OneDrive. And again, Mrs. Swartz will speak to you a little bit more about the schedules. So, we have made a number of growths. We have grown a lot and made a number of changes since the first year of implementation for Cougar Hour. And so those changes are reflected in the first 4 pages of your packet that provide you the current description of Cougar Hour, who does what and when, and what the expectations are. We are still crunching our discipline numbers, and we don't have any trend data yet, and mostly that's because we have multiple variables at play there. The first year of implementation, intervention was mandatory, so students who were at risk of failing were assigned to intervention, and if they didn't go to intervention, they were marked for skipping. We also introduced school-wide lunch detention, so rather than just haphazard teachers hosting lunch detention, which most did not, quite honestly, the administrators hosted school-wide lunch detention, so we had an alternative for negative consequences for students. So those were factors that happened. And then the second year, we removed the mandatory status for intervention. We still offer intervention, but we don't make it mandatory. It was really quite unmanageable in terms of having any teeth and being able to hold students accountable to that. And so we do still have the lunch detention. So with the adjustments to the duty assignments and the clarification of expectations, all of those things create some multiple variables, which make it hard for us to really see any trend data. However, if you do extract referrals for missing intervention or detention, you can see that there's a significant reduction of referrals during the lunchtime hour. Pages 9 through 12 of your packet reflect referral data for Cougar Hour and for all times of day. Again, it has been hard to establish trend data or causal relationships due to the shifting variables, but we keep looking at it and we keep counting and we keep collecting the numbers. We identified core values in 2016-17, the respect, responsibility, kindness, and honesty that are the mantra of our school. We expanded those into school-wide Cougar expectations so that now throughout the building you see what does respect, responsibility, kindness, and honesty look like and sound like in the bathroom, in the hallway, during Cougar Hour, in the cafeteria, in this classroom. We shifted to one administrator for discipline and introduced a prevention resource officer. You overlay that with the introduction of Renaissance model for school climate, and the fact that I am still here all give you some variables at play there. But again, we're continuing to collect the data and hoping to be able to see what those trends are. We are hoping to see continue to see reduced discipline referrals. We hope to see improved attendance. We hope to see students reduce the number of students who fail courses. So we're continuing to collect that data. But we do see it and we do feel the shift in the overall culture, and it is beginning to reflect in our school climate data. As we continue to strive for a culture of mutual respect and accountability, we want Jefferson to be a place where our students and faculty feel like they matter and feel like they belong. And with that, I'll turn it over to some of our faculty, students, and parents for you to hear their perspective and experience of Cougar Hour. Again, the list is in your packet, so we can transition from one person to the next without interruption. We have Suzanne Swartz, Samantha Vickers, they are both teachers. We have Andrew Johnson, Sophie Runkles, and Sam Shunney, students. Amy Panzarella, you saw earlier this evening. She hangs out at Jefferson, too. We have Sergeant Ben Williams, who is our Prevention Resource Officer, who will share a bit about the safety aspects of Cougar Hour, and then our LSIC Chair and parent, Jen Rolson, will wrap things up. So with that, I'll move out of the way and hand it over to Suzanne.
I apologize. Some of what Ms. Fitzgerald has said was in mine because of how we got from point A to where we are today. So I'm sorry, but it's going to be there. So I'm Suzanne Swartz, and I've been a teacher at Jefferson High School for over 30 years, and most recently I've headed up this committee to improve Cougar Hour. When Cougar Hour was mentioned to us briefly in the spring of 2016, I, along with most of my colleagues, were skeptical. I mean, let's face it, Jefferson not only has one of the largest student enrollments in the state, but its physical size is long and broad. Lots of doors, lots of spaces, lots of places to supervise, over 60 minutes of unstructured time. Yeah, we were like a deer in headlights. The first days of the 2016 school year without students were challenging, to say the least. Our first 2 days back, we struggled through the loss of a coworker, spent hour upon hour in staff development designed to aid us in our grief, while also providing us with information and strategies to keep it from ever happening again. On the morning of the third day, the day before students would be gracing our classrooms, we were introduced to the reality of Cougar Hour. You're familiar with the shot heard round the world? This was the gasp heard round the cafeteria. Over the next hour, we were presented the new bell schedule, which would incorporate Cougar Hour, provided a chart of our duties as well as the expectations for students and staff in the various areas of the building, and were informed it would begin the very next day. Since the next item on our agenda after lunch was the county convocation at Shepherd University, there was little time for questions or further explanation. In fact, many of us weren't even sure what questions to ask. Our minds were a blur at this point. We still had a million things to do in our classrooms, and the students were arriving the next day. At that moment in time, I can't speak for my colleagues, but many discussions later, I feel confident in our collective apprehension because nobody seemed certain of what exactly we were supposed to be doing, let alone how to guide the students and what they were allowed to do. But time stops for no one, even the unprepared. So when Thursday came, we made the best of the situation and survived J-High's first ever Cougar Hour. By October, it was clear many were still not happy. Long story short, several committees were formed to address the various components of Cougar Hour, but by the spring of 2017, there was only one committee comprised of 4 people remaining. Initially, we looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly from our own points of view. Within the committee, we shared our own ideas, concerns, and suggestions, and then solicited the same from our colleagues as well as some of our students. The basic theme of what needed to be addressed was the same: safety, supervision, clarity of responsibilities, accountability, and consistency. Once we compiled this data, we then asked ourselves the most basic question: what is the purpose of Cougar Hour? Obviously, it was a time for students to eat lunch, but it also gave them time to seek tutoring, do their homework, join a club, participate in an activity, release some energy playing basketball, study, work on group projects, have access to computers, complete makeup work, and even enjoy some downtimes with their friends. Certainly plenty to keep them occupied if they chose to utilize the extra time constructively. For staff, it provided time to tutor students, assist with makeup work, sponsor clubs and activities, meet with their departments, collaborate with other staff, even extend their 4th period some days to have enough time for lengthier labs, longer practice times in band, art, dance, and theater, and a host of other classroom activities across subject areas. Essentially, it was affording time for both students and staff to take care of business that would otherwise need to happen outside of school hours when many students would be unable to stay. Now that we had the why and the what, we needed the how. Our first stop was the schedule, which we basically left the same. There is Cougar A and Cougar B. Departments are equally divided for all staff to be allotted a 30-minute duty-free lunch, at which time some teachers voluntarily open their rooms to students to provide an extra place to eat, study, complete work, or just visit with friends. During the other 30 minutes, each department would have 1 day a week for intervention purposes when students could come for tutoring, to make up work, etc. 1 day for departmental meetings, which could also be converted to intervention days should the department not be conducting meetings that week, and 3 days for teachers to be on duty to supervise Cougar Hour. While on the subject of duties, it should be noted that administrators are scheduled for duty every day, and counselors, as well as aides not in the completely self-contained special education classrooms, are scheduled at least 4 days per week. That also leaves two counselors available throughout the whole Cougar Hour available to students. Once the schedule was solidified, we went to work on logistics. During the first year of Cougar Hour, the entire school was open to students. That left areas un, or at the very least, under-supervised. We decided to close the A and B sections of the building. Only students with official passes are allowed into these areas during Cougar Hour, and this year, we've also closed the C section as an area in which to congregate. Students may continue to walk through C without a pass, but it is a quiet zone to ensure less noise and distractions for staff and students in this area who are utilizing the time for intervention in their classrooms. Supervision assignments were next. Areas such as the cafeteria and gym require the most supervision. Each have an administrator assigned as well as 3 other staff for Cougar A and B. During the first year, we had 3 outside areas open: the front of the school, BC courtyard, and the tennis courts. Last year, during second semester, we closed the tennis court area. Therefore, now there are only 2 venues open outside, weather permitting. Obviously, they don't go out if the weather is inclement. There is standing water or the temperature is 42 degrees below zero. 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry. I'm having The amount of supervision for the rest of the building was made based on the crowd in those areas. There has been some tweaking since last year, but for the most part, the areas seem to be adequately covered. The guidelines are pretty straightforward. Staff are encouraged to move about during supervision, monitor behavior, and redirect as necessary. Students are only to be in designated areas, exhibit appropriate school behavior, have valid passes to enter areas which are closed, only eat in areas where food is allowed, and clean up after themselves as necessary. To ensure everyone was better prepared for the second year of Cougar Hour, a detailed presentation was made to the staff during one of the 3 days of professional development at the beginning of the 17-18 school year. Basically, it outlined the process we used to make the adjustments, stressed how, in order for Cougar Hour to work, the entire staff needed to be on board, and appealed to our colleagues to be a part of the solution. Through email as well as OneDrive, the documents that you have there that I passed out were shared with the staff who were scheduled for duty. A chart of the areas to supervise, the supervisors to supervise, and the supervisors of those duties during both Cougar A and B for each day of the week, a schedule depicting on which day each department had intervention and departmental meetings, a detailed description of every supervisory area and the responsibilities for both the students in the area as well as the staff scheduled to supervise, and a schedule by department. In addition, each of these documents were attached in an email sent through the listserv, also put on the OneDrive to all staff, and a hard copy of the duty chart, as well as the individualized duty responsibility sheet for every staff member, was placed in their mailboxes. You only have an example of 2, but every staff member got their own. Since the revisions and improvements may have indicated that Cougar Hour is indeed better than Since the revisions and improvements, many have indicated that Cougar Hour is indeed better than the first year, and most have chosen to become a part of the solution rather than perpetuating the problems. So with all that said and done, is Cougar Hour perfect? No. But what is? I will say it's much improved since its inauguration, but like anything in education, it's a continual work in progress. And in early December, I will send a questionnaire to my colleagues soliciting input, suggestions, comments, etc., and we'll make necessary changes to improve what we can for second semester. The premise behind Cougar Hour is a valid one. The issues we have are generally the result of students who choose not to use Cougar Hour for what it is intended. Like anything, anywhere, there are always those 10 to 15% who make it difficult for everyone. This I attribute to not being able to handle unstructured time, or at least not 65 minutes of it. Some students see it as their time rather than time to attend intervention, make up work, get their homework done, work on projects, join clubs, participate in activities, and yes, hopefully to eat. Presently, there are natural consequences for the poor decisions students choose to make. For example, not attending intervention could lead to failing a class. Behaving inappropriately can result in disciplinary action. For some, unfortunately, those consequences haven't been enough to alter their decisions on how to better utilize their Cougar Hour time, thereby creating challenges we still need to find a way to overcome. Unless we create a schedule where it is mandatory that all students are somewhere productive during Cougar Hour, rather than having free reign to roam, which would be probably a logistical nightmare, I'm not sure how to encourage those particular students to maximize Cougar Hour for their optimum benefit. However, I do believe the majority of the students do utilize Cougar Hour in a constructive manner, even if it's just enjoying a little downtime in their day. Regrettably, like everything in life, what doesn't work, the negative aspects, if you will, often tend to overshadow the good. Cougar Hour got a bad rep from the beginning, and although it has improved considerably, that black cloud lingers. But as I stated earlier, Cougar Hour is a continual work in progress. We'll adjust and review semester by semester, and hopefully we'll come up with a workable strategy to make Cougar Hour a time that will enhance the success of each and every one of our students. Like I stressed to our staff last year when adjustments were made, for Cougar Hour to work, everyone needs to be on board. Staff needs to promote the opportunities Cougar Hour provides. Parents need to encourage their children to explore what is offered during Cougar Hour to enhance their high school experience. And students need to take advantage of all those opportunities at their disposal each and every day. By doing this, Cougar Hour could monumentally aid in student success, but it'll take everyone involved, working together for the greater good. Personally, I think we're on our way to making that happen. We just have to be vigilant, supportive, and open to new ideas to keep the positive momentum going.
Hi, I'm Samantha Vickers, and I was one of the original skeptics of the onset of Cougar Hour a few years ago. Where were all these students going to go? What were they going to do? What would their limits and boundaries be? Who was going to monitor this huge building and all of its nooks and crannies? Would it be total chaos? Change is hard, and I didn't want Cougar Hour, period. Honestly, that first year was not very fun at all, but I almost feel we had to experience that bad to get to where we are today. Suzanne Schwartz, along with our staff, students, and administration, have revamped the whole hour and has made it what it is today, and I believe it works. As teachers, we feel that we need to be in control of every situation that occurs when students are on our watch. Cougar Hour teaches us all to have a little bit more of a flexible attitude, within reason. Students are given freedom to make their choices. Yes, there are a lot of kids in the hallways. Yes, the media center is full. Yes, there is food in areas other than the cafeteria. Yes, the gym is loaded with kids playing basketball. Yes, it's 65 minutes long. Yes, it's louder than we would normally like. Yes, there are students outside. However, in all of this controlled chaos, students can be found having lunch, studying, socializing, exercising, walking, and not sitting at a desk, visiting the guidance office, seeking tutoring or doing makeup work, attending clubs, study halls, or freshman academy. And if you'll note the part about mental decompression as stated by our students in their feedback. Of course, these are just some of the activities in which our students are involved. It's also quite possible that our students are doing all of these things on any given day. I spoke to a substitute teacher recently and asked her opinion of Cougar Hour. She stated that she loves subbing here at Jefferson and hasn't had any issues with the Cougar Hour. She found it also a plus that students can get some of that energy out in the middle of the day, and it seems to make students more alert in the afternoons. I would have to agree with her. Not only do teachers have their assigned duties 3 days a week, to which Ms. Schwartz has given us some sort of flexibility in choosing what we would enjoy doing, but we also get a chance to have lunch, attend department and leadership team meetings, host clubs, intervention time for students to get tutoring or to complete makeup work. We have time to plan lessons and to collaborate with other departments. We are not limited to all that I've just listed, but it really affords the teachers and the students the opportunity to get things done during the school day. From my perspective, Cougar Hour has become a win-win for all involved. It took a while for us to adjust, but I do feel that Cougar Hour has been a positive thing for Jefferson High School, most importantly for the students. There are so many opportunities for academic success and for socialization as well. And I attribute a lot of the success of this to Ms. Swartz and her organizational touch that she put on it, but really the staff has bought in, and I truly believe it's a very positive thing for our school.
Hello. I'm Andrew Johnson. I'll try to keep my views a little more succinct tonight, but just to say it plainly, I think Cougar Hour is fantastic. I have nothing but fond things to say about it. Implemented my sophomore year, it not only fixed the issue we saw with the 3 lunch shifts and an hour-long 5th period, it also allowed for that continual growth in educational and social progress, which is always a continuing objective of every school system in every state and all over this country. You've already heard some of what we've had to say tonight was a lot about, intervention and, fixing all these other issues with student discipline actions, but I mean, a lot of what's been mentioned but not really delved into is a lot of the student organizations, which is truly a huge part of Cougar Hour. I mean, I myself am in a couple student organizations and student government, and it is a blessing, to say the least. Coming out of freshman year when we had to meet after school, making a schedule with everybody else, whether it was sports, whether it was church, whether it was all these other out-of-school organizations, doing that was just near impossible. And then the teacher, who was the advisor, having to take time after school when they already had students that they had to help with after school work and all these other things. It was just not that feasible. And so when we actually found out about Cougar Hour, all we could hear was there's going to be 30 minutes added onto your lunch shift, and the first thing we heard was there's going to be 30 minutes longer in our day. It was just, for myself and a few of my friends, it was like, absolutely not. And then first day I get in there and everybody's looking at me like, yeah, you were wrong. I was like, yeah, I was wrong. This is great. Because immediately in that moment we're like, not in 5th period for an hour, it's not an hour and a half wasted overall, and instead we're being more productive with it, and it was great, especially for our student organizations, and it's just a fantastic thing. And then also about, intervention and all those things. I myself have benefited immensely by that policy of making sure that you can go in during Cougar Hour, Cougar A, Cougar B to get work finished. Last year I had a medical issue and was out for over a week, and keep checking live grades and all those zeros on quizzes that you missed, and an F in a few classes, that's going to get you inspired to do some work. And it was truly a fantastic thing to be able to go back and be able to do it during Cougar Hour and not have to wait after school when I had a lot of other things to attend to. So it's truly just a fantastic thing for the students. And I think for some teachers too, in that aspect, that they don't have to do it after school and that they have some more time on their hands as well. So I want to make sure that that's something that's clearly addressed. And I also do have another story that actually plays into this, and that was my sophomore year. There was obviously a lot of security issues that were mentioned after there was a certain event, and there was all this rumors that they're going to get rid of Cougar Hour, and we had just had these class officer elections, and I'd won a position, and a lot of the students came up to me and they're like, I don't know what you can do in that position, but please ensure they don't take away Cougar Hour, because it's truly just a great thing, and we really don't want to see it go. And that was just from the first year that we had it. And ever since then, it has only progressed to become more secure, more safe for everybody. And it has truly just enabled more students, I think, to, again, achieve greater educational and social progress, which is just a fantastic thing for all school systems. Jefferson, like you've heard, it's a very big school. And I think that in keeping with that, it's just a big school, but in the other sense, it's such a grand school. And I think that because it's such a great school and such a grand school, we should not be limiting ourselves to small goals and small dreams in that school. And we should expand Cougar Hour, I think, in every aspect as possible to other high schools in this state and other high school in this county. And I hope a lot of other schools will pick it up too. It's truly a great program. And I hope you all, members of the public, members of the county leadership, members of the board, can truly respect that and understand that tonight. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sophie Rancos, and as you can tell, I'm nervous because I'm not used to this, but I feel like I should say what I think of Cougar Hour. As you can see, I have my accent because I came from a different country. I started freshman, and they have the three lunches, and when they started Cougar Hour, I loved it because I got the chance to go to my teachers and ask for help because I was lost. I was just lost. I was like, what am I doing in here? It was just really hard. And I got the chance. Teachers actually would care about you and sit with you and teach you each thing. And I got to learn more English. I'm still working on it. But I think for international kids, it's something really helpful because they get to go at least to their English teacher, which they like feel more comfortable with, and ask her for help. And she usually goes and asks the teachers, hey, what is this? And she learns. She learns too. And I just feel that got my grades better. I'm working on straight A's this year. It's getting there. It's not that easy. But I actually help my teacher explain the kids how to do things. Most of them, their English is not that good. I go to the teachers during Cougar Hour and take them and ask, hey, look, they are not getting this right. And they feel like their grades shouldn't be like that and stuff like that. And I learn too. My teacher and me, we are learning because we just take these kids everywhere and ask for help, and it's just great. I really appreciate her doing the Cougar Hour because we really get help. That's all.
Hi, my name is Sam Shunny. I'm a senior at Jefferson High School. If I could use one word to summarize Cougar Hour, it would be opportunity. Cougar Hour provides designated time within my schedule to study, receive tutoring, or meet with teachers to receive more one-on-one help when I feel like I'm struggling in certain classes. I feel like this structure helps students such as me maintain our grades, try not to fall behind, gain any help that we may need. I feel like Cougar Hour gives students the opportunity to make up missed work, tests, quizzes, worksheets, or projects. I know a lot of students don't have the ability to have transportation if they have to stay after school, they don't have transportation home, so they have to choose between grades or spending the night at school. Cougar Hour grants students the freedom to socialize, relax, exercise, or study based on their desires. It provides a healthy and casual environment to reduce the stress levels of all. And it influences an increase in maturity and promotes self-advocation, preparing students for handling the responsibilities of adulthood. I would say Cougar Hour helps me maintain my engagement and understanding in the classroom, but also allows me to take a break from academics and socialize with my friends and classmates.
Good evening. My name is Amy Panzarella, still here. I am the parent of 2 Jefferson High School graduates, Anthony in 2010 and Andrew in 2017. My youngest son, Tyler, is a junior this year. As you know, Cougar Hour is a fairly new initiative, so it didn't exist for my oldest son, Anthony. It was introduced during Andrew's senior year, and it is all Tyler has ever known. Over the years, I have listened to my kids talk about the frustration of students not having enough space to eat comfortably in the lunchroom or having enough time to decompress from the stressors of the day. For me, Cougar Hour was a welcomed and innovative resolution. This block of time affords students the opportunity to eat lunch and socialize in the place of their choosing, with established limitations, of course, participate in school organizations, or acquire extra help with their schoolwork. Working in human resources and having a vast background in creating and implementing policies, I recognize, and may appreciate more than others, perhaps besides Mr. Pettiford, that newly imposed policies and procedures, despite well-intended planning, do not always go off without a hitch. Cougar Hour is no exception. However, from 2016 to today, many of the initial kinks have been ironed out. And the rumor mill about the chaos and discord that Cougar Hour was propagating has settled down based upon what I am hearing. I visit Jefferson High School once a week, at least, during Cougar Hour to mentor a student, and I have never noticed anything other than students seemingly minding their own business while visiting with friends, maybe throwing a football around on the front lawn, or studying. I am well aware that there are occasional disruptions among students during this time, but I have no doubt that these would occur whether Cougar Hour existed or not. I hope Sergeant Williams agrees. There is one vital impact that Cougar Hour has on the students that isn't often discussed, although I did hear it tonight, which is the freedom for them to make decisions about how to prioritize their day. Granted, they may not always make the best decisions that we prefer, but this is part of their development to becoming adults. Giving teenagers the opportunity to think independently and to hold them accountable for their decisions is vital. I, for one, am grateful that Jefferson High School students have this time built into their academic day.
Well, I'm Sergeant Williams, and this is my second year at Jefferson High School, so this is all I've ever known is Cougar Hour. I will say, coming in to Jefferson High School, I have this whole mindset as a police officer because naturally everybody's thinking about the security of the building and what's going to happen. And I came in thinking this is the first thing that's got to go. This is, I was stuck on evening shift for about 5 years, 6 years after I got promoted supervising a shift, so I barely interacted with at the high school level, and I ended up covering a shift for a week for one of our supervisors, and I ended up going to the school the first year they implemented. I'm like, what is going on? What are we doing here? It was because I wasn't accustomed to it. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody answered my questions. I mean, it was just one of those things. I hadn't really asked the right questions either. So when I got selected to go into the high school, I'm thinking, this is when, all right, I'm going to get my feet wet, and then I'm just going to lay it down. Like, listen, this is not going to work. And I remember going in there, and I'm thinking they had already made I wasn't there for the first year. The first year that they made all the different, they learned from some mistakes. They had made things a little better. I noticed there was still some staff that possibly weren't on board, but there was more that were on board. Like they really started grasping on to what was going on here. And as the year went on, I got to about December, and I'm like, this is not bad. Started seeing how the kids interacted with one another, how they got out of the classrooms. I mean, I remember being in high school and being stuck in a classroom and trying to give my best 24/7 all the time, sitting there at a desk, and finally given an opportunity to have some time with my friends. I noticed one thing that we don't have here in Jefferson County is after-school activities buses and stuff like that to get our student body to after-school activities and such. Well, having Cougar Hour allowed that opportunity, allowed that time, and I noticed that. I sponsor a club too. I ended up halfway through the year sponsoring a club with another faculty member, and I enjoy that. I still am part of it. I do it every Wednesday. Ms. Swartz assigned me a duty station this year, so on Fridays I have one place that I have to stay. But for the most of the time, just like the administrators there in the high intensity areas, whether in the cafeteria or up in the gymnasium, usually I try to mimic that and stay where the bigger population of students are. I have noticed that this year they tend to get out a little more and start walking around a little bit and enjoying each other's company. No disruptions or anything abnormal, but just hanging out with their friends. So what I do now is I tend to be one of the floaters for the most part. I think something we've also missed, and the interpretation I had coming in is I just thought it was a free-for-all. But there's so many structured things within Cougar Hour for them to do, and it's already been discussed, but that's what we didn't understand coming into it. And now I see these things and the opportunities that they have. And a majority, I think Mrs. Swartz said it, a majority of our student body do that. They follow that. They do those things. And the school, in a sense, and I take this back to my department, to my agency, because they're all like, you're crazy, Williams. There's no way that is okay. And I'm like, we're in a school of 1,500 students. A school in general, in law enforcement's eyes, is a nightmare anyway. It honestly is a nightmare. Anytime something goes wrong in a school, there's a big population of people in there. There really is no 100% thing that's going to make it all safe and great. But I think we've done a good job. Most of the building is secure. Most of the building is shut down. We have faculty members standing at those doors that are locked, or that are shut down. They're not locked, but they are shut, so they have to have a pass with a specific teacher's name on it to go to that classroom. We also, in those hallways where students are not supposed to be, there's also faculty members roaming up and down those hallways. The bathrooms are all locked except for the ones that they're allowed to have access up in the gymnasium and the D bathroom, and we keep them all in that area. There's designated spots for them to be outside, along with teachers out there watching over them. And I believe Mrs. Fitzgerald's taking the outside duty this year. She's, whereas administrator in the cafeteria, administrator in the gym, Mrs. Fitzgerald has decided she will be outside even when it's a little chilly for this guy. I don't do well in the cold. I've seen the staff grow through it. I wasn't there for the growing pains they experienced in the beginning, but I see it now. I watch them pick at each other when they're not on duty, and I get a kick out of it. Or when Mrs. Swartz is walking around with her little clipboard, as she walks into each individual area and she's doing that little scan. It's fun to, hey, I think she called for you, because you know where she's headed. She's going to the office to call for somebody. I see the positive interaction between our students. If you ask me about the altercations that may happen during the Cougar Hour, listen, every time that bell rings, there's 1,500 students in the hallway. And and there's less teachers in the hallway then than there are during Cougar Hour. And honestly, it's harder for me to move around during the bell schedule than it is during Cougar Hour. Cougar Hour, I can get through there. I can just flow right through and get to where I need to be. It's harder for me to move through a hall during class change. I think that it's a great idea. I was definitely one onto it. I really enjoy it. I think it's something that our student body, and you've heard from our students, I think they did a phenomenal job talking about it and using it to the greatest capability that Cougar Hour is meant to be. But, there are those that don't use it for what it's supposed to be. But I think part of it has also taught our student body to be accountable for each other. It's given them ownership of the building. Because there's been twice since I've been at the school that we've removed Cougar Hour due to some consequences or things that have happened within the student body. And the only thing that was ever repeated to the students was, take ownership of your building. If you see something that's not right, say something about it. Let us know that something's going on that's not right. And we've seen that. We've seen communication build up between our student body because they enjoy the Cougar Hour. Just because a small majority of students don't do the right things, now you have a majority of the student body saying, when they see something, they say something. That is not right. They're destroying our bathroom. They're doing this. That's not what it's used for. So we've actually seen some communication between our student body and recognizing when issues are. And I'm a very big proponent, even though my colleagues would tell me that I'm a little crazy at the sheriff's office. My colleagues at the school, I believe we all are adamant about it. We all love it. We all enjoy it, and we support it, and especially when it promotes our students to continue to grow. So.
Hi, I'm Jen Ralston. I am chair this year for the LSIC. I am also a mom to Sam Shunny, who you heard earlier. Well, as you can gather by now, everybody here has been talking. We're all pretty big fans of Cougar Hour. Something that I probably haven't even mentioned to Mrs. Fitzgerald is I'm a Cougar alumni, but from Charleston, West Virginia. So all the controversy about Cougar Hour, to me, was surprising because at Capitol High School, I was the second graduating class there, and we had what, in essence, was a Cougar Hour. The same thing that you've been describing here today, I had. So when I found out that they were starting this, I was like, you had to stay in the cafeteria? That's crazy. So for me, it's a no-brainer. So what I want to close with today is more a wrap-up of what I've experienced being Sam's mom and watching him go through the school system. Because he didn't enter Jefferson County Public Schools until 6th grade. So he started at Jefferson in 2015 after having been at Shepherdstown Middle School for 2 years. That was very tumultuous, and it resulted in him doing a homeschool online program for his 8th grade year. After that, he wanted to be with people again, so he entered Jefferson High School. As you know, 2015 was a very tumultuous year at Jefferson High School. So as you can imagine, I had many concerns, and I was very quick to complain, and Mrs. Fitzgerald and I became phone buddies for a little while. I also have the philosophy that if you're going to complain, you have to also be willing to step up and help fix the problem. So I became a member of LSIC. And through that, I got to witness firsthand the passion, the energy, and the love that Mrs. Fitzgerald and her faculty have for the students. When I come to those LSIC meetings at 5 o'clock, they're all still energetic and so positive, and I'm just thinking, how can you be that way after spending all day with 1,500 kids? So it's so impressive to have witnessed that. I've also been so impressed by not only with Cougar Hour, but the numerous initiatives that they have put forth for the student body through Renaissance programs, through Mrs. Pearl and all of her positivity initiatives. what they have done through all of these things is they have created a new climate for these kids, a new atmosphere that does show them that these kids matter, that every kid there matters. And that is what I keep being so impressed with and witnessing over and over again. I think I had just a couple more notes. I didn't want to leave anything out. Oh, and the other thing that was mentioned earlier was that that I see this too, and even with Sam and his friends, the beauty of Cougar Hour, to give them both the freedom to do those things that, you know, whether it's with homework or the clubs, but not only do they have the freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. So in closing, as my son is a senior and might not be on LSIC anymore next year, I do want to say to the board and to Superintendent Gibson, first of all, to the board for hiring Superintendent Gibson and for you hiring Mrs. Fitzgerald, because the change I have seen from Sam being in 6th grade to 12th grade is huge. So thank you.
And I want to say something else. I know I was the nervous one, but... Well, another thing that I thought, and, you know, I thought about it, is that kids actually who have personal issues get the chance to go and talk to maybe to a favorite teacher, or they get the chance to go and talk to a friend and actually get the issue fixed in some ways. And I think that's something really important, because a lot of kids, you don't know what's going on, and they don't, for half hour, they don't get really the chance to go and talk or express themselves. In this Cougar Hour, you just go, draw, do whatever, and feel better about it. And other thing that I actually was surprised is that in Halloween, they put up this, how would I say that? Like a drawing of a face. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, the coloring contest?
Yeah, the coloring contest. So I like art, I love art, and so I decided to color it, right? And whoever wins, they get a prize. Well, I was surprised because I was walking in hallways and I see my drawing up. So I think that will make kids feel better too, because they showing their art, what they did, and that's another thing. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I know that was a lot of work and effort to put into that, and especially thank you to Andrew, Sophie, and Sam, because the best presentations we ever have are the students advocating for themselves and their fellow students. So thank you very much for being here this evening.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Ms. Fitzgerald, it sounds like Cougar Hour has really improved from day one, which kudos to everyone who makes that happen, and that is so important. The concerns that have been brought to me are more about access to school lunches for all students, and when the couple of times this year when you had 3 lunches, the student count went up 75. And so how can you ensure that everyone has access to the school lunches? Because the first, I guess last year, I've had parents say that they just got into a habit of bringing their child lunch. It's like people are trying to figure out what's best for them. And I mean, it is our responsibility to make sure that all of our students can at least have access to the lunches. So you want to talk
Every student has access to the lunches. So the lunch line, when the bell rings at the beginning, the lunch line is kind of the typical length that it was when we had 3 lunches. And then again, the kids filter through, they kind of time themselves in and out. There's a natural shift at the midway point. So every student has access. When there are 3 lunches, there is no place else to be but the cafeteria. And we've had 2 days where we had no Cougar Hour while we were decompressing from an incident, and then we had the Thanksgiving lunch. But every student has access to the lunch.
Right. But if Cougar Hour is 60 minutes and 3 lunches are 90 minutes, I could see how the count would go up when you have 3 lunches, because there's more time and you're cycling students out of the cafeteria. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of massage that into your schedule, just to make sure that everyone can get to the lunches. And because the numbers already show that when you don't have Cougar Hour, the lunch count goes up.
When we don't have Cougar Hour, they don't have any place else to be but the cafeteria. So every student has access to the cafeteria. There is never a time when any student has been turned away or not been able to get lunch. And there's plenty of time when there's not a line. So once the Cougar Hour starts at 11:15, by 11:35 there's no line. Then it'll bump back up again at Cougar B. There'll be a short line. So there's never a time when a student's not served lunch. Who has
Okay,
I guess we'll.
And then maybe
But I'm talking about the timing.
1 second, like, I know you're talking about like the 3 lunch shifts and that's like 90 minutes, but you have to remember, like, for each of those students, they only get 1 lunch shift, so it's actually only 30 minutes. So while there is like that in the broad scheme of things, 90 minutes overall for lunch, it was only reduced if we in fact were doing the 3 lunch shifts like we did my freshman year. That student would still only get 30 minutes to have lunch. With Cougar Hour, they do have a 60-minute period in which to get that lunch and also to do other things. So just maybe to step in and maybe help.
I think the numbers is what is the concern. That if more students eat when there's 3 lunches, then perhaps those 75 additional students who aren't eating during Cougar Hour, perhaps it's a logistic matter. Is there something
eating, they're just not purchasing they're not purchasing school lunch. They are eating.
I'm not sure how you can definitely say that students aren't. If the number goes up when there are 3 lunches, then how can you be sure that during Cougar Hour they're not distracted or, why do they have to go to the cafeteria during the 3 lunches?
Because that's where the supervision is. If there are 3 lunch periods out of a 5th period, that means that teachers who teach a 5th period are in a classroom with students. So you have maybe 9 teachers who have planning during that time.
So if they pack their lunch, do they have a place where they can go and eat their lunch?
During the 3 lunches?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, students can pack lunch any day that they want.
Right. So I'm still not understanding why the lunch number would go up when there's 3 lunches just because they eat in the cafeteria.
There are fewer choices.
I'm not understanding that, but okay. And the other issue are the instructional minutes. We have, the state requires 345 instructional minutes, and with Cougar Hour, that's taken 60 minutes out. And by my calculation, that leaves 325 minutes of instructional time. And we do have 2 high schools, and the other high school is meeting 355 minutes. There's a difference there of quite a difference. How can we make sure that all of the students are being accounted for the additional 30 minutes instructional time? I know they have the opportunity to go and do things, but you still have that group that if they're not, if something's not organized or planned, that's instructional minutes lost.
Is there a question?
So you agree that Jefferson High School students only have 325 minutes of instructional time?
I will trust your math. We have now the same amount of time through all class periods. So in terms of when you have a blown out 5th period for 3 lunches, then that class period is longer than everyone else's. So then you have a disparity in terms of the amount of planning time for teachers and the amount of contact instructional time for students during the 5th period as compared to the others. So in terms of, again, I trust your math. We extracted, we simply moved our time around in order to accommodate Cougar Hour.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to be clear that my issues with Cougar Hour definitely just deals with access to meals and instructional time. It sounds like people who love it, and that's great. And I just want to make sure that everyone, has that type of personality that they can take advantage of all that you have to offer. But I know that there are those who don't, and that's who I want to make sure, they get that access to the meals and the instructional minutes.
And for now, since we have school-wide lunch detention now, we also, for students who aren't able to self-regulate during Cougar Hour, we have a place for them to be able to go that is structured, so we can pull them out of circulation. So there are a number of students who are on no Cougar Hour, and so they're supervised for the duration. They're either in with the detention group being supervised, or they're with a teacher in intervention. So we've been able to do that for students who are not self-regulating.
I know the only thought I have on that is, I have 3 teens and a tween, and you can't distract them away from food.
I assure you, as soon as someone's not eating, a parent gives me a call. So.
No, not all. They call me too.
I mean, I don't know if it's the kind of thing that if they do have more options, then they're more likely to pack their lunch if they know they can go to chess club or whatever, book club or whatever the club is, instead of going to the cafeteria and purchasing lunch. I mean, I don't know the dynamics of that. I don't know.
Right, we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing that we need to make sure that they're all getting, they have access to it.
And please understand that students who buy lunch in the cafeteria don't have to stay in the cafeteria, so they can take their lunch that they buy in the cafeteria to the club, to wherever it is that they go in the designated eating areas. So, but again, I think it's a matter of choice. When there are more options, they simply choose to pack.
Well, thank you very much. Any other?
Thank you guys. I just want to say thank you for the effort. I also had a student experience Cougar Hour, and have kind of seen the evolution of that. And I have one coming up that's very excited about it already, even though she's in middle school, just because of all of her activities. So just thank you guys. Thank you, Ms. Swartz, as well, and to all the staff and to the students, frankly, because if the students, as you say, don't have the buy-in as well and participate and get what they need to out of it, it doesn't happen. So it's fun to see all the things going on. I've been there several times myself and have enjoyed it. Just seeing them act like adults and, frankly, be prepared for college, because when they have all kinds of free time that they have to learn to manage on their own when mom and dad are far, far away, and you're hoping that it's a good choice, I'm really, really, really glad that they get an opportunity to practice that ahead of time in a very controlled environment before they have to leave home. So thank you guys for the work that you put in and for not giving up on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Good job.
We're going to go get ready for school bar.
Yeah. Yay, thank you.
Madam Superintendent, any comments?
No, ma'am.
Approval of minutes. Action on approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held November 13th, 2018. Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? All right. Citizens' comments. Thank you once again for being so patient with us while we conduct our actual business. Ms. Ogden, would you be so kind as to time?
Not my favorite job, but I would.
And just a reminder, 3 minutes is the limit, please. And first up is Jay Mansfield, and after Jay we have David Tabb.
My copies show a couple of cartoons so you can get a feel for what we're looking at. This is about rock wool. We've never seen a complete analysis of the emission stream from any rock wool plant. We've seen a list of probable elements in the stack, but we've never seen a complete analysis of the effluent. We don't know what our kids will be inhaling, but we do know if the particles are small enough, they're going to go directly into the bloodstream, and many of them will go past the blood-brain barrier. They also don't tell us the location of the stone. They'll melt and blow into rock wool. Because of that, the trace elements emitted after vaporizing them cannot be ascertained. We don't know what trace elements our kids will be inhaling. We should all pray that silica does not exist in the rock. If you look that up, you'll see why. If we allowed development to proceed as planned, our Board of Education would be forced by law to use 97 buses to transport 3,300 kids from a relatively safe environment to what I call the hot zone every school day. The hot zone is a 2 square mile polygon drawn by connecting the heavy manufacturing sites to North Jefferson, to T.A. Lowry, to Driswood, to Jefferson High, to Wildwood, and back to the Ranson heavy manufacturing site. There's a map in the back that you can see the hot zone there. Through busing, we create a site that is 24 times more densely populated, and the air will be 20,000 times more polluted than the average of the county. There'll be 860,000 bus trips, 873,000 truck trips, 1.7 million trips of buses and trucks in a 12-year period. 2.5 million children days they can be exposed in 12 years. If there's a 1 in a million chance of some terrible catastrophe between those buses and those dump trucks, it'll probably happen in one of those 1.7 million trips. Just for some inspiration, in the diagrams below, look how tiny PM 2.5 is. One picture shows that PM 2.5 is 1/70th the width of a human hair. Another shows how tiny PM 2.5 is compared to red blood cells. The WVDEP approved shooting 3.2 million pounds of that into the air over a 12-year period, right across from our schools. Now remember, PM 2.5 is the stuff that's small enough that it'll go directly into the bloodstream and can pass the blood-brain barrier. And part of the problem is that there are chemicals attached to that PM 2.5 that adsorbed to the PM 2.5. So that means it's like an injection every time the kids breathe, if they get those particles. The WVDEP and EPA will definitely allow more pollution as more companies come. They're a necessary enabler to allow more pollution into the county. Think about it. If the WVDEP and the EPA was doing what we think their job is, don't you think it'd be safe to eat fish caught from the Potomac? The safety of our children would be passed from the Board of Education, who've done a great job over the years of taking the kids, to some night shift worker at the Rockwool plant. Thank you, Board, for doing what you can to stop this.
And after Mr. Tad, we have Nancy Gregory.
Maybe she's still here. I think she's still here.
David Tabb, Jefferson County resident. The Cougar Hour took a little over an hour for the Cougar Hour to be telling you what happened. That was part of your agenda. You made that agenda. The law says that you're supposed to open the meeting, optional pledge, acquire the minutes, which hadn't happened. The minutes are supposed to be here, available for us to see. Then public comment, and you can control that. You can say how many minutes it's going to be, or the structured. I've been here for over 2 hours, waiting, while you were doing your business, and you have not followed the law. Now, within the Cougar Hour structure, which was educational, they said that there's always a portion of people that don't follow the rules. We have a portion of our elected officials that don't follow the rules. I have to follow the rules every day, and I've done it for a long time. Now, people might not like the way I do it, but I'm a facts person. And if you look at 9A within the West Virginia Code, it's very clear. These are the rules you're supposed to follow. Now, some of y'all have only taken the oath of office and swore to uphold the Constitution once. There's others that have sworn to uphold the Constitution more than once. And it's not acceptable. And when you look at the Open Meeting Act, the people have not given up their rights to the elected officials or the government, or they can change it. I was hoping that I didn't have to do this evening. We can either work this out, there's other structures that can be done. You can set the times, you can set the requirements, but we, coming to speak here, have to file 15 minutes before we come in here to speak, before you open. You can change that, all the other ones have, and say that public comment's going to happen at 8 o'clock, and you can file right up until the time that it happens. That's workable. But what you've done is illegal. It's unconstitutional. I got the paperwork that shows that you had not done this before the 13th. You had not done it. The paperwork is clear. Now, I already have a challenge against the county commission right now in court. I can add you as well. It's really easy. It's a real simple paper to include you. I didn't want to. I was hoping you were helping us, but now I have to think that you're not. I've already changed one permit with TEMA. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you. Nancy Gregory.
She left.
Okay. Mary Ellen Ross. And after Mary Ellen, we have Sharon Wilt.
Good evening, Mary Ellen Ross, and just want to have a brief little thing saying that I know later on the agenda you're going to be talking about the JCV summons, and I'm just hoping that you will not contest it. Okay, and just asking y'all. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. You hope what?
You don't contest it?
We don't
Contest it.
contest it.
And after Sharon, we have Susie Weimer.
Good evening, board members. Sharon Wilt. I'm here again. Ms. Roper, I'd like to address you with the Cougar Hour. I was one of the first students that went to Jefferson High School when it first opened, and it was a free-for-all down there. It was nothing for one student to go in and get lunch for free. So I can understand what they were talking about, that everybody had a chance to eat, because I would go in personally, grab 3 lunch trays, 3 lunches on one tray, and we had a smoking lounge. They've got a Cougar Hour. They're structured. We were wild. And that's just the way it was. I commend them for what they've done. I understand where it looks as though they may not be getting their lunch. Kids eat. We'd eat out of the vending machines, cracker machines, or whatever, just to be able to get outside or go to a thing. So I kind of understand what she was talking about. That's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here as Mary Ellen with the pilot lawsuit that's been placed from JCVA. All the signers of the pilot agreement have the option to not contest the allegations as set in the complaint. This means you, as the school board, do not wish to fight your own community on the legal question of equal uniform taxation that the state of West Virginia clearly mandates. Please do not let Rockwell continue to pull the strings. Please file no contest to the pilot agreement, and let's go from there. Let's shut them down. No contest is really going to put the boot down, so to speak. Thank you.
And after Susie, we have Sean Amos.
I made some notes here, but I don't think I can actually read them any longer. So I'm just going to talk. First, I want to say I disagree with David Tabb. I thought tonight was very fun and entertaining, and who knew? I mean, I missed years and years and years of Board of Ed meetings and all this fun. The kids were great. The singing was great. I enjoyed it. I want to talk to Mark tonight. Mark and I have known each other well, we can't even remember when we didn't know each other. We grew up around the block from each other, went to every grade of school, first grade on. We're really old, so there was no kindergarten then. All through college. Mark graduated. I was a rebel. Didn't quite make it. That's another story. But, Mark, you have to be really upset about this. Mark is a fisherman, a hunter. He loves everything outdoors. I can't imagine, and I realize that we all realize now that we've seen documents and heard stories and everything that you all were uninformed, basically just fooled into signing this pilot agreement. And I'm sitting here looking at you. I need new glasses, so it's blurry. You must be devastated to just think what this factory could do to our county, our heritage, our wildlife, our tourism, everything that you and I grew up loving. Benita's sitting over there. Jan wrote a lovely letter, who was also one of our classmates, for the Spirit of Jefferson this week about everything we love here. And we're loving sharing it with all the people who haven't been here for generations. But I know you cherish it as much as I do, Mark. And I hope you have influence on your colleagues here to do the right thing for us.
Good evening, y'all. I'm here to talk about the pilot agreement as well. I think a lot of times people wake up one morning and realize they got married to the wrong person. And I think that that's sort of what happened with y'all. You know, when I first looked at that pilot agreement, I saw Scott Sutter, someone named Scott Sutter had signed this thing. And he basically married y'all to a real schmuck. And that schmuck was called Rockwool. And he got you guys into a legal agreement, into a union, with somebody who would poison your own kids. And if you think back to a time when you could just divorce people at the drop of a hat, you know, that's only been the last 20 or 30 years, right? And we've been coming here for months asking y'all to divorce Rockwool. Get out of this nasty marriage that you've been put into by somebody who didn't explain who this schmuck was that you were going to be waking up next to. And now comes your opportunity. You know, you're going to have a health assessment. I know you think you need a health assessment to make it official and to make it legal. And to say that burning coal next to a bunch of elementary school kids is a bad idea. But now comes the opportunity for someone to nullify this marriage. And that's what this lawsuit would do. It would say that the pilot agreement is illegal. We are going to dissolve this marriage that you were put into with Rockwool by means of saying that you can't even have this kind of a marriage between y'all. It would undo the necessity of doing any of these other things that you were going to do to try to get out of this marriage. And so tonight, I think that a lovely thing to do would be not only to plead no contest and say, hey, we're not going to fight this, please get us out of this marriage. A lovely thing to do would be to join it. You can actually join a lawsuit saying that the agreement that you're in is not legal. But even if you can't find it within yourselves to do that, I beg you to plead nolo contendere. Yeah? I've been dragged into court twice. Both times I pled no contest. I didn't want to fight it. I wasn't afraid of the consequences, but it wasn't worth the fight. This is a fight that you didn't want in the first place, right? You don't want to be in this marriage with these people. So please, when you guys get together tonight, decide to do the right thing and to at least not fight the lawsuit. Let us get you out of this marriage in a legal way that would keep you from having to go through all the other gymnastics you're going to have to do to get out of it anyway. I know it feels weird when you get it served a notice and it sounds like you're being sued. But it's the agreement itself that's being sued. It's this kind of marriage that's being questioned, saying that you should not have to be in this. So please, when you guys get together tonight, at least say you're not going to fight the lawsuit. Or better yet, join the lawsuit against these pilot agreements. Obviously, it's not good for any of us. This thing's going to burn coal. It's going to burn coal. Yes, they want gas, but they have to fire coal to get it hot enough to melt rock. They want to burn coal next to our kids. This can't be okay. It's a nasty marriage. Please don't fight it. Just let us get you out of the pilot agreement. We'll do the heavy lifting. Help us do that, okay? Thank you.
All right, consent agenda.
I have 2 edits to the consent agenda, removal of number 19 and number 20 on the superintendent's approvals. You'll notice that it's a deletion on there.
I have 3 things that I'd like to pull out for discussion. First, on the finance agenda, the line item incorrectly states a reimbursement check for $723 was written to Arthena Roper. That did not happen. Second, I'd like to know what the services we will be getting from Dixon M. Jennifer for $10,000. And under the contracted services, what is the job description for a professional communication mentor?
All right, well, first, let's have a motion on the consent agenda so we can have any discussion.
So moved.
All right. So there are 3 issues on the finance consent agenda?
2 on finance, 1 on contracted services.
Do we have any information on those 2?
No, that's why we give you the agenda in advance. So we can pull those and I can do some research and bring them back to the next meeting.
The 723 was supposed to be written to me and it was not, so. Yeah,
and again, I can't, I don't have the finance person in here, so I can't speak to those.
But I didn't receive a check.
And I hear you, I believe you. I'm just saying I don't have any more information to give you about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the contracted service position, the professional communication mentor?
I do happen to know is a legal service. We have an employee who is on a corrective action plan that we had to provide an independent mentor for a certain professional service skill set. And Dr. Offutt was being engaged for that purpose. But outside of that, if you have any other specific questions, those I would need to answer likely in executive session because it involves employee discipline.
My concern was that federal programs is paying for it, and last year during graduation, it was my understanding that federal programs ran out of money to pay for translators for kindergarten graduation, and so if federal programs is spending money on things, when they said professional communication mentor, I was hoping that this would be somebody that could, help with that.
Express my own concerns about that
in that capacity.
Yeah.
Okay, how about, do we have a motion to amend the consent agenda, removing those 3 items?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any other discussion on the amended consent agenda? All right, all in favor of the amended consent agenda? Aye. Thank you. All right. Unfinished business. The architect firm selection for the CEFP 2020 to 2030 and bond.
Yes, ma'am. The direction of the board at the end of our last meeting, after discussion in executive session, the board asked us to go back and get additional information on pricing from the architects. The school board authority notified us that we could not legally seek competing bids from architects. their process, actually written into code, which I've provided to the board and which was shocking to me, is that you have to rank order the individuals that you want to seek business with. You have to go to your first person. You have to negotiate with them. If you're unable to reach a price that appeals to you or that you want, then you have to go from them to the second one. If the second one you don't like their pricing or you can't reach an agreement, you can't go back to the first one. You cannot have them competing against each other. You would just have to go to the third one and to the fourth one, and it makes no sense. I suspect that perhaps some provider had some
state.
Yes, I suspect that some of those service providers somehow worked with legislators to ensure that that's how that was written, and I would certainly encourage the board to add that to the legislative agenda. Yes. But as it stands right now, if you wish to procure those services for the CEFP, we are legally forbidden to solicit competing bids from this. The board will need to give us sort of rank order in which you want us to pursue those.
So if we pursue one and they give us one price and we're not happy with that price, and we go to the second person and they actually charge us more,
we cannot go back to the first one.
We can't take the next one. We're going to pay more according to the law.
You can go to the third one.
You can go to the third one.
But if you end up at the fourth one, you're stuck.
And then get crap. Because they could talk to each other. Nothing is against them talking to one another. It's just we can't talk to them.
It's in
unless it's one at a time.
6200. I mean,
yeah, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Not because that surprises me, but
I'm simply conveying to you that we attempted to enact the will of the board, and that we received, and we specifically requested that they put it back in writing to us, which, as you know, the director of the SBA did, along with a copy of the section of the code that requires that it be done in that manner. So hence, we are coming back to the board, and you can move forward either by saying, this is our number one choice, negotiate with them, tell us how it goes. If we're not happy with it, then go back and select your number two choice, or you can go ahead and rank order them and direct us to say, negotiate with this firm first. If we don't reach an agreement on pricing, then negotiate with this firm second. But that's how your directive needs to come to us so that we can proceed in accordance with the law as it currently stands.
I think we had a 1 and 2 choice.
You did have a top two, both of which, right, so you'll need to rank them because we can only pursue one at a time.
One at a time.
Do you want us to write out or just nominate? How do you want to?
Just to help the confusion, I did rank them a couple times before for other things, and their two were almost dead even, again, with everything we had. So I looked at the numbers myself, and as I looked at the numbers, like I said, the only thing that I found was any change between the two is Crawford has more services than does the OWPR. The only thing I could find that was a real good change. Crabtree had more services, and that was the only thing I could find that separated them in any way.
If you simply
because they both were using the same engineer.
Right.
Your top two were statistically balanced in every way. It's simply you making a decision between
so
OWPR and Crabtree Rohrbach.
That was it.
Okay. And I think
Those were the two
OWPR
finalists.
was the one that had the office in
Blacksburg.
which
In
one?
Martinsburg.
In Martinsburg, right? Because I remember one of them was very local.
Yeah.
So I make a motion, we move forward to request a bid from one of the PA.
See, this just
PR.
ran each one of those firms.
I didn't understand what you said.
I said I make a motion that we move forward to request a bid or negotiate with OWPR on the CEFP.
Second.
Do we have a number that we're looking at? You said negotiate with them. Do we know what number we want them to come at, or are we selecting?
It's a whole different process than we've ever been through before. So I don't even know, have they done one with the new
Not
process
with the new
yet?
process. No one has.
Right.
We can't
So we're the guinea pig.
Price now. We might, we don't know what our financing is. We don't know what their bid's going to be. We don't
If
know
they
what
come
this
back
entails even. No.
Until we get it from SBA. Until we get it from SBA. The only reason that we're actually doing this right now is because we need to move forward with whatever we can move forward with now. Because otherwise, if we wait a whole nother year, we're going to be behind the 8 ball and still be behind and not get what we need.
The reason I asked that question is because it sounds like your motion is to not really select, but to talk with them about financing. And
which two?
I'm wondering if we shouldn't just go ahead and select a firm.
I don't think we can select a firm without a price. I think we need to talk to them, and then our superintendent will come back to us with a price, and then we'll discuss whether that price is reasonable or not, and whether we want to go to the second firm.
That's why I was asking, do we know a reasonable, do we know what's reasonable?
Well, it's hard to know what's reasonable when we don't know what the job is. You know, I think that we're thinking in the neighborhood of 50,000 to 80,000.
And I think they'll come back to you with something that, in essence, you'll have to decide whether or not you think you can then leverage number 2 on your list, since you do have a top 2. There's not like 1 and everybody else is way down here. You know, when we go to the next person, they will certainly have the information that we rejected the first bid because of where it's at. I would think that it would.
So then do you go your number 2 choice first and then negotiate with your number 1 choice? That's a dangerous thing to do.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And again, because those top 2, there wasn't a points difference. You know, some of you had them right number 1, 2 in different orders. I mean, they were both right there. And knowing, and we'll tell them up front, hey, the board's already given us our rank order. You know, we had all of these people bidding. If we can't reach an agreement on a reasonable price, you know, we're going to go to number 2, and you know we can't come back to you, so you've lost our business. So I think there's still some pressures to put on them financially.
And the crazy thing is, I mean, we're going into this blind, and they're going into it blind too.
I will say that, yeah, they haven't done this before, so they don't know how much work it's going to be with the new CEFP process.
They haven't done this, but I think they've helped, some of them have helped them develop this process.
I think the most important thing is we have to say to them that, you know, if you do get the bid, then if the state comes back and changes any criteria, you have to change it without a price change.
Yes.
Because, I mean, the state hasn't completed their final plan, though. So that's kind of the crazy part.
And they took our money to do it.
Okay. So right now we have a motion to have the superintendent negotiate with OWPR to complete the CESP. Does everybody understand the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Just repeat that again.
The motion is to have the superintendent negotiate with OWPR to complete the CEFP. All right.
Isn't that fun working with the Jefferson, West Virginia government? Let's move to another state.
The state of Jefferson County?
Pardon?
The state of Jefferson County?
State of Jefferson County sounds good to me.
Middle Virginia?
Pardon?
Middle Virginia?
State of Jefferson County, like that.
We might be able to take Berkeley and Morgan with us.
Eastern Panhandle Secession Plan. Is that the new
All right. Yes, please, no quotes on that. All right. Action on the Jefferson County Vision Summons. Obviously, this is a legal update, and we will need to go into executive session. There possibly will be action coming out of executive session.
Well, there's a number of things in executive session. Legal update, there's a personnel matter, and there is a student discipline hearing.
Okay.
So we will definitely have action coming out into open session.
All right. And it sounds like it may be an extended executive session.
Perhaps.
All right. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay. At the end of, since we're at the end of regular session, again, I want to make sure that I understand the will of the board moving forward. What you tasked us with, my list, exactly. So I have that we will come back with information on the noted reimbursement check to Ms. Roper. That was not actually a reimbursement. A $10,000 payment to Dixon Jennifer. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Information about the professional communications mentor designation for that, and negotiation of pricing with OWPR to bring back to the board. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we have a motion to go into executive session. All in favor?
All right.
All right.